Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Today our episode is Destruction Dilemma.
Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Scott Whitwam, your blueprint to financial abundance. Settle in as we explore the mindset and methods for wealth building through real estate.
Welcome back. I'm Scott Whitwam, and today our topic is Destruction Dilemma. We've all heard the old saying, to make an omelet, you must break a few eggs. And who doesn't like breaking eggs? Or in our case, walls. So first, I'd like to talk about what a destruction dilemma really is and when I should remove some of the home and when I shouldn't. This is a great question, and I thought this would be really good for an episode because I get asked this quite often as a contractor when I show up and working with investors and homeowners, because homeowners want to know a lot of the same things we do as investors, but just for a different purpose. A homeowner may say, well, should I remove this wall? Should I do this upgrade? Should I do this? Because we may want to sell this house in a couple years, but we want it to look nice, which would get us the most value. Well, as investors, we're looking for something similar. I mean, does this make sense? Should I do this thing on this project, and will it monetize itself for us for the future? And it doesn't matter whether you're flipping a property or whether you intend on holding the property for some period of time. We're all looking at what monetizes the best. If you're buy and hold investor in a high-end area of the location where you're at, you may want to do some things that you wouldn't do if you're investing in a lower rent community. So, for instance, I have a rental property that, we kind of went back and forth on this. It had laminate countertops. And of course, in our area, laminate countertops have fallen out of favor because all the HGTV shows, all those kind of the shows that you see on TV now for real estate, flip this, buy this, rent this, whatever, are looking for granite countertops. And so that's a big push. But how do you get a granite look without spending granite money? And so this house had laminate countertops, and we talked about just replacing the laminate countertops. It's a rental. It's not a high-end rental, but it's in an area where the rents are pretty strong. Certainly it warranted not having laminate countertops. If it had been in a lower-end area, I certainly would have probably just said, hey, let's just throw laminate countertops in. It's not going to matter as far as the rents, but we wanted this house to look nice, and we compared the price of granite versus doing epoxy. And so, sometimes you have to weigh those options, and we decided with this house, let's go ahead and epoxy it. So we actually tore out of the kitchen the laminate countertops and did an epoxy countertop using MDF and built the backsplash and did the epoxy and made it look like granite or quartz or marble. We did a really nice pattern, really good colors. It was really nice. But now in the bathrooms, we left the countertops in place and prep those and actually epoxy them in place with the underlying laminate countertops to match the way the kitchen looked. Turned out fabulous and cost us thousands of dollars less. So we could have gone through and just taken it all out, put in granite, and it had been good, but I didn't think this application it really warranted. So we look at the same thing when people ask me, well, should I remove this wall? Should I, perform destruction in this home? And it all depends. First off, if you're doing this as a rental, if you remove a wall, does it open up more space to build maybe another room? Especially if you're in the co-living rental market. And maximizing the rooms is really the best function of profitability in the thing. So maybe we're removing walls. Maybe we're turning those walls into bedrooms without having to remove them. We have to look at all of those things to determine what should be destructed and what shouldn't. Because really at the end of the day, for us as investors, it's about monetization. Well, monetization also sometimes means modernization. modernizing the property. Again, whether it's a rental or whether you're selling this thing, sometimes just changing it, modernizing it. I don't know if you've ever been into a house where you just went into it and you literally felt like you were in a mouse maze. I remember it was years ago, it was probably back in 2012, 13. We were looking at an opportunity property, and this is a good area, but some of the houses in there were a little bit older, and this one was probably built in the early 80s, somewhere like that. And we went into this house, and I remember we walked in to the house, and there was a wall. But there was an entry, you went in, and you went into this living room area, and then you went through another and went into the living room area or the family room area. And then there was another thing. You went into the kitchen. And then I remember going out of the kitchen, and literally we went down this little hallway, and there was a bedroom, but then the hallway turned, and there was another bedroom, and the hallway turned, there was another I mean, it was literally like being in a mouse maze. Sometimes when we look at those, we say, who's going to want to buy this in a modern real estate era when new homes are wide open and they have great entertainment and functioning value? And so, we have a property that we kept. We have it right now. We actually kept the property, and we took 10 primary walls out of the property because we needed to modernize it. It was the same thing. You came into a living space and you had a wall, and you went into a dining room and you had a wall, and you had a wall, and you had a wall. The bedrooms didn't function good. It had a weird hallway. It was narrow. And so we took out 10 walls, rebuilt, put it all back together to modernize it, open it up, and make it much more functional. And that is a good reason to get into, demolishing, demoing perfectly good walls, is because you're adding some modernization. What is that going to do for you? Well, if you got a family that's coming in to rent it, they're going to look at it and go, wow, this is open, it's modern, I can have people over, this is how we interact now, and this is what we're looking for. Very few people do I find, every now and then I find, and very few people do I find want things that are closed off. They want a kitchen that's separate from everything. Most people want their kitchen to be where the family room is, so while they're making dinner and doing things like that, they can interact with the family. So modernization is important. So the next question is do I need a designer? Because, if you don't know anything about design, how do you figure out what would increase the functionality? And I would say, do what my wife does. Watch these real estate television shows. Now, look, I'm out doing this every day. So I'm in houses all the time. We're doing construction on houses. I'm out with my construction crews. We're flipping properties. We're doing all this on a regular basis. So when I come home, the last thing I want to do is watch, home real estate TV. But my wife likes to do that because she's not out doing that a lot with me. But if we have properties, I'll bring her out because she watches those shows. I'll bring her out as my designer, and she will let me know what is modern, what people are looking for, those kind of things. So do you need a designer? You can hire one, but I wouldn't. As an investor, I think you just need to learn what is and isn't appropriate in your area and in the environment we live in. For instance, back in 2012, 2013, you know what we were putting in kitchens? We were putting espresso cabinets in everything. You know what we were tearing out? We were tearing out white cabinets. People were ripping out white cabinets and putting in espresso cabinets. Do you know in the last 4 or 5 years, I think that maybe 1 or 2 kitchens we've put in dark espresso or dark cabinets. You know what everybody's putting back in kitchens now? White cabinets. It's, things cycle. So you just stay up to date, and you can do that very easy. This is just a cheap hack. Go watch HGTV. There's 50 different shows out there about flipping houses and renting houses and remodeling houses that you can watch and find out what works in your community. You'll find things you like and don't like. I mean, there's a couple designers out there that paint every house a specific color, and it's a color I don't like. So my wife and I always laugh, and it's almost like saying, I wonder if they're going to paint the house this color this time. And every time it's that color. And there's somebody else that uses a different kind of wall finish. And when my wife's watching it, I always I hate that kind of wall finish. I would never put that in my house. But you know what? In your area of the country, or with your taste or the taste of people in your area, those may be perfect where you're at. You have to know your environment. And obviously, since I have a real estate brokerage, I'm in and out of houses, with a lot of my clients, and I'm looking at and hearing their thoughts of the things that they like and don't like. So for me, that gives me some advantage. And if you've got if you're in the real estate industry and showing clients as a real estate agent or something, you listen to what your clients are saying, because that'll help you on your flips and on your rental properties. It'll also help you for knowing what a floor plan should look like, whether you should take out a wall. In my opinion, anytime you can add bathrooms, anytime you can make a house more open, anytime you can add an additional bedroom without taking away from the functionality of the house, anytime you can expand the kitchen or the master bathroom or the master closet, it's worth looking into doing the destruction that needs to be done in order to make that happen. Now, on the other side, you may not need a designer, but what about getting an architect involved? You say, well, I don't know if I want to pay an architect. Now, look, I've got a friend of mine who owns a construction company, and they do everything, they can themselves. They do hire architects, but one of the things that they try to avoid is permitting any of the work that they're doing. I do have some real issues with jurisdictions, municipalities permitting systems, their processes, and the cost. A lot of it, I think, is just simply a money grab. But there are some very good reasons that permits should be issued, and that's when you're dealing with anything that's structural, any major electrical changes. I think it's silly, but we always encourage our clients on the construction side to get permits, to go through the permitting process. Let us go down and get permits for them for a job. They have to pay for them, so they have to agree to them. When we're moving electrical, when we're moving plumbing and those type of things. But there's a lot of things. I mean, if you're just moving a couple outlets, if you're moving a light, you're moving those kind of things, really, I don't think that permits, that jurisdictions should require permits. I mean, if you're doing just a couple $1,000s of work, if you're moving non-load bearing walls, none of that, in my opinion, should require a permit. But you need to check with your jurisdiction. Because if you get caught doing work without permits, then the fines and penalties get pretty substantial. But when you work with an architect to redesign the spaces that you're in, it doesn't have to be very expensive. Once you develop a relationship with an architect, you'll find that some of them will work with you pretty reasonably. You just got to probably work through a few who won't in order to get there. And get an architectural design on it. Let them be able to tell you whether or not a permit's needed, whether an engineer's needed. But I really think that you should use an architect anytime and get the engineering done anytime you're dealing with anything structural, anything that's going to change the shear loads of the house, the roof capacities of the house, the loads on the house, the insulating value of the house. Some of those type of things, you really should work with an architect, make sure that you have the drawings. It'll also help you, and if you're hiring a construction company, it'll help to keep them on track as to what the finished product is supposed to be like, what the actual outcome will look like. And a lot of times they'll bring some things to your attention also that you didn't think about. In my opinion, for the cost, most times for architects and engineers, it is worth it. Permits, on the other hand, that is something that you'll have to look at your local municipality and determine whether or not it's required and whether or not it's worth doing. There are some things that again we've done that we thought there's no way this requires a permit. All we're doing is taking down one that's not safe and putting up the exact same thing that's safe, and have found out that permits were required. To do that. But again, I think it's just, in some cases, a money grab. But for you as an investor, you've got to weigh all of the costs, whether or not it's really worth it or not. I would say in many cases, opening up space, modernizing space is generally worth it. If you're in a middle to higher range rental market, generally worth it. If you're in a lower end rental market, it may not. I've had some rental properties in lower end areas, lower end rent generating areas, I don't anymore. But what I found is that generally if I put really nice stuff in there, it got destroyed. And so if I'm going to have something destroyed, I really didn't want super expensive stuff in there. So we try to keep our investment equal with the area of our monetization. And I think that makes a lot of sense. But anytime that you can open up a space, make it brighter, make it more modern, and give people the comfort of what they're seeing on TV, they will feel much better about moving forward with an acquisition. So for instance, the houses are the most open, the nicest looking, have the most modernization. They sell the fastest, and they generally bring the biggest sale price per square foot. Now, you got to do your research and your homework. You got to know what things are selling for in your area. And it's the same thing on the rental side. The things that have the best modernizations, the modern looks, the modern feels, they typically rent for more money. So I think that there's some real value. And as you face this destruction dilemma, always remember the bottom line. Run your numbers, find out what it is. But if you can make things better for the consumer, it generally will become better for your pocketbook. And so again, I would really take a serious look anytime you have the opportunity to remove walls, upgrade things, make things bigger. It typically will be better for you. I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Be sure to check out our growing list of previous episodes and other real estate investing topics. I invite you to subscribe today. Be part of our growing family. We're so glad to have you watching and listening to the podcast today. You can always find the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Podcast, or YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. This is Scott Whitwam. Be sure to join me on our next episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, where we're wealth building through real estate.